Hello, my name is Villapudua. I'm 14 years old, and I go to Robert E. Lee High School. And one thing I've always wanted to be since I was a young child is a doctor, because doctors are the kind of people that you meet that find solutions to different problems and they cure diseases. And not all doctors cure diseases, but there are some that do. And I think to be able to be this kind of person, to be a doctor, you have to do three different types of things, which are challenging yourself, finding ways to help others, and making a difference in this world altogether. And I think that these three factors are important if you want to become successful, if you'd like to be a role model or a leader. Which brings me to my next topic, inspiration. Inspiration is my next topic, and I think inspiration is something very important if we would like to reach success and achieve our goals or even exceed them. And in the Congress of February 2014, I think that there was three speakers that really stood out to me and that really spoke to my heart truthfully. There was Connie Mariano, Brendan Burchard, and Dr. Gilbert Taylor. First of all, Connie Mariano tells a story about how it's important to be different and how the story of how she became successful, and that inspired me to do more and more to reach my goals. Brendan Burchard, he told us a story about how it's important to turn your life around if you're not on the right path or if you're not on the right way to where you want to go. And then last of all, there was Dr. Gilbert Taylor that had a severe hemorrhage in her left brain, and that inspired me to pick a disease that takes place with the brain, or more specifically, the central nervous system, which is why I picked multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease that is caused by the immune system attacking the central nervous system, or more specifically, the myelin, which is located on the myelin sheath, which is located on the nerve fibers. And the myelin sheath helps create the nodes, and the nodes help certain nerve signals be traveled faster for us to be able to create certain impulses and actions. And MS is the leading disease that affects the central nervous system in young adults. And having MS can cause you a lot of problems such as muscle spasms, bladder problems, difficulty walking, and difficulties with any type of coordination. So I think that it is a big problem and it is a cure that we need to find, because anything that hinders a person from becoming the person that they like to be or creating the story that they want is something that doesn't need to be on this earth. So I think that we need to find a cure for this, and there are certain things that we need to know, certain information and data that we need to collect before we start to find the cure for MS. Before we set out to actually give the cure to people, there's certain information that we need to know to be able to help and find a cure for multiple sclerosis. First of all, we can start with how the immune system works. There are different parts. The most important parts to find the cure, the most important parts to know to find the cure for MS, I believe, are B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, and dendritic cells. And first of all, we can start with B lymphocytes. B lymphocytes are the different cells in the immune system that recognize antigenic substances, and they attach themselves to the antigenic substances. So when they attach themselves to the antigenic substances, the antigens are marked for demolition. When that happens, it comes to the T cells, and their job, well, of course, they have different jobs because there's three different kinds of T cells. There are helper T cells, regulatory T cells, and cytotoxic T cells. First of all, helper T cells help signal the body to begin the immune response. Cytotoxic T cells help target and destroy antigenic substances, and the regulatory T cells are the ones that help stop the immune response. So, another thing that we also need to know is about dendritic cells, receptors, and protein S. All T lymphocytes have protein S on their surfaces, and when the surface of the protein S comes in contact with a dendritic cell receptor, the dendritic cell is told to stop turning on T cells. And when that happens, the process is slowed down, and eventually it stops the immune response. The way I plan to put my cure into action is by extracting protein S and regulatory T cells or lymphocytes from the cerebrospinal fluid of the donors and injecting it into the cerebrospinal fluid of the people who have MS, which are also known as the recipients. And there are certain criteria that the donors have to meet to be able to donate to the people with MS. First of all, they have to have healthy blood or a healthy body system overall, and they can't have viruses or anything of that nature that would contribute to another problem in the MS patients. And they also have to meet the criteria of having the same blood type as the recipient that they are going to be giving it to. They also have to either have a weaker immune system or have to be able to afford giving or donating the protein S and regulatory T cells without having a negative effect on their own body. And the reason why I choose people with a weaker immune system is because studies have shown that in mice, because the reason why they do mice is because they have a common set of genes as compared to the humans. So in studies of mice, they've shown that less inflammation is caused by more protein S, and more inflammation is caused by less protein S. So to put that statement into logic, it would be, you could take a person with MS, they don't have enough protein S to signal the dendritic cells to stop turning on different types of T cells to stop the immune response. So that causes the exaggerated immune response. And people with a weaker immune response, on the other hand, have more protein S, and so that is what causes less inflammation, because there is more of it, and so the more protein S there is, the more the T cells are communicating with the dendritic cells that no more T cells need to be turned on. So if we take away from the people with weaker immune systems, it helps balance it out. Also with the regulatory, why we're taking regulatory T cells out of the people with weaker immune responses is because if there is not enough regulatory T cells in the body of a person with a weaker immune system, then the cytotoxic and helper T cells will be able to perform their jobs more